Good evening, Detroit. Good evening. This is Aaliyah Moore. I am coming with an update from DPSCD, Detroit Public Schools Community District. They had a informational session today, and this was one of their first since, give or take, the pandemic. This is the opportunity where two board members were present. Dr. Vitti was present, President Angelique Mayberry Peterson, and Vice President Misha Stallworth. So they were in Misha Stallworth West. They were in attendance. They had a lot of department heads that were there. Facilities was there. Sherlonda Buckman from the FACE Department, the police officers, pretty much they tried to hit the academics, all of the department heads were there with the assumption that if stakeholders had concerns that the right people were in the building. So, that's good. The heads are always good to be in attendance and to hear the needs. It wasn't a lot of parents, mainly staff. It was at East English Village, which is now at Finney. For everybody that doesn't know the name change that occurred. But it wasn't, very well attended, but it was good people in the room. The pluses, though, we did have a parent speak on the importance of transportation. She's a mom, I think, of 3 or 4. She travels to 3 different schools. She is hoping and anticipating when her child will receive, both of her high school students, will they receive bus passes? And see, that's the whole thing. The assumption is that bus tickets are available and bus passes are available, but that's just not so in all of our high schools, or the children are not getting access to them. So she talked about that, and also having an autistic child that was 10 and not getting the proper services. People need to know, Detroit needs to know that a lot of our autistic children, or children that are on the spectrum, are placed in our general ed classes. Now, are they getting resources? I'm not all the way 100% certain, because that would depend on that child's individual education plan, which is an IEP. So I'm not sure if they're getting their services, but just know, a teacher teaching already, 30 kids, plus to add that, that scholar that is on the spectrum, that's extra. So if the resources are not there, that was the mom's frustration. But she talked about basically she's doing her part as a parent. Her children pretty much have perfect attendance, minus, doctor's appointments. She feels like it's her responsibility, which it is, to get our kids to school on time in uniform. So she's feeling like, I'm doing my part, but I need some help. She was very transparent in her life and, her desires for the district. And it was good to see, 3 people run up to her at the, after her statement, which are, I'm assuming, part of the special needs department heads, ESC, and, the transportation or whatever, making sure she gets what she needs. But Dr. Nikolai Vitti, he needs to be making $400,000 plus a year. He needs a training on human relations, because, the board gives Angelique Mayberry Peterson, I'll give her that. She is sympathetic for situations. She, I believe, in certain situations, is accommodating to parents and their needs, whether it's, deaths of our students, or, homeless situations, or, things, but okay, this is supposedly a unique district. So you have to, kind of think in that way. But she provides a little bit of sensitivity. Dr. Vitti does not have that sensitivity. And, from everything that he responded to her, initially he was telling her, good job, continue to advocate for your kids, and it's going to get better. It has to get better. You the damn superintendent. So you're responsible for helping her make it better, but you're giving her an advocacy speech about, keep fighting. And basically, she pulled out what he said. And he said it, maybe you just need to find another school. Maybe you need to, that's not encouraging coming from a superintendent. I'll give him, he tried to round it off and put it in a bowl. Maybe it's the teachers and the situations, but off the top, you trying to keep enrollment. And that's what she pulled out. She said it like, kind of mumbled it like, so basically you telling me to find another school? So it's like find another school or find another district, or what are you saying, Dr. Vitti? But he just needs better training in how to communicate with parents and to show a little empathy. You know what I'm saying? The bulk of the meeting, though, was them explaining about, how we're on track for the facilities plan, the $700 million, how the district now has to make these tough decisions because of this one-time COVID dollars, and that ultimately, if your school has 300 students or less, your assistant principal will be gone going into September. Going into August when we start back. Dean of Culture, same thing. School culture facilitator, same thing. Kindergarten paraprofessionals, same thing. And it was still up in the air about the nurses. The nurses weren't necessarily discussed today. The parent outreach coordinators will keep their positions, but the question becomes, he said they'll be getting paid with Title I dollars. They are hourly right now, hourly employees. So does Title I, is that funding allow them to keep that, or will they go down to a stipend? Because a stipend and an hourly pay is two different things. And that's, a lot of money, rent money, bill money, a lot of money at stake. He talked about, one of my questions was, again, the Mackenzie Scott grant. And that grant was for $20 million. And for $20 million, Dr. Vitti, which he's already, not optimistic, we're going to try to, find 50 or hire at least 50 more academic interventionalists. Now, I say that in a lot of videos with the assumption that you know what those are, but Detroit academic interventionalists are, certified people that come get the children out of the classrooms that may need a little extra help, because when the lesson is going, and, our teachers they don't use the words, I believe, pacing anymore, but pacing, it's basically a lesson a day that they have to give the kids, get the information, we on to the next lesson. Some children may struggle, or just generally in that area of subject, they struggle. So an academic interventionist is supposed to pull out those children that are ultimately struggling and provide them with the extras that they need on top of letting the regular teacher continue to teach. So Dr. Vitti is not optimistic, but he's saying that $20 million is supposed to hire up to 50 more academic interventionalists. He did not say where they are supposed to be, but he did say they're anticipating hiring 50. When I asked about this, like I said, at the height of the pandemic, it was told to me they couldn't find any and that people don't like to work on contingent contracts. But when I asked specifically, and I had to holler it out because, like I said, he selectively answers what he wants. Everybody's pecking on these keyboards, but not enough people recording these questions so that he can answer them. But when I hollered out, so are they going to be on contingent contracts? His thing was no. We may have money, if things go right, they'll, have up to 3 years of employment. Isn't that kind of a contingent? I'm confused. Am I wrong, Detroit? But if you kind of know when the money's going to end for these positions, then isn't that kind of a contingent? Anyway, let me switch up a little bit. Misha Stallworth-West, which is our vice president, she said their legislative priorities moving forward is going to be academics, the total well-being of the student, which means nurses, mental health services, etc., and attendance. And also they are also anticipating the literacy lawsuit If nobody knows about that or you have questions, just Google the literacy lawsuit, DPS or DPSCD, and it was actually won. And we are set to receive $94 million from the state for the literacy lawsuit. So those funds should be coming shortly, along with an increase in funds from Gretchen Whitmore. So we have money coming, people, along with this $20 million from Mackenzie Scott. But it's about accountability, Detroit. You cannot just assume that with extra money, we're going to be okay. Because even in this conversation, and I'm going to follow up this live with an email to Dr. Vitti, because it's like double talk. You have to listen to him. Because initially, it was said that if you have a population of 300 students or less, your assistant principal will be taken. Paul Robeson, I believe we're at 407 for something. So we are way over the 300 mark, correct? I was told before the meeting from school, we won't have one moving forward. We get in this meeting with Dr. Vitti, to Paul Robeson parents, just asking them the status of our school. We're going to have one. So I'm going to email for the final answer, because at this time, we don't need to double talk. Positions need to know, or employees need to know where they stand about their employment. Schools need to know what's happening like now. Parents need to know what's happening like now. So, this is a good start, having this informational session or, resuming them, because they did have them prior to COVID, periodically. So now they're bringing them back. And the plus is that they're bringing department heads. But, and it was advertised in the weekly newsletter, that they text out and they send a robocall stating that check your newsletter. So I appreciate that. The timing was at 5 and, from 5 to 7, it was over a little bit after. But they try to be slick, public comment, you're given 3 minutes. You standing up there today, they gave you 2. Once my 2 was up, I said, we get a little more time because, don't we get 3 minutes? Give me another minute. And of course I went over, and others went over, because honestly, it wasn't that much of a, it wasn't that many stakeholders. We had I'm going to sidetrack and be a little positive. We had a Black woman, older woman, seasoned woman, but has been around and done some amazing things in golf. She teaches golf, and she's willing to and wants to come to the district to teach our babies golf. She said it, everybody's not built to be an athlete, as far as, the rigorous type of athlete. But, she said she has sent so many children and seen them go through college, getting full scholarships on golf. So she's anticipating with working with the district to provide a program on Saturdays. So I hope they take that opportunity, and they had her go to a department head. So that's good, And another parent was talking about partnerships and placement for our senior students with these different organizations. Not just giving them a diploma, but ultimately giving them solid, dependable, legit employment, coming out of school, perhaps in the fields that they have taken up, subjects in high school, or just placement, period. So, the community comes with ideals. It's sad that all we do is whine and complain and, want to hear ourselves talk. But in a lot of these meetings, you have legit concerns. You have people trying to submit doable solutions, or just trying to come and trying to be a betterment for our students. But with this district, it takes consistency, and it also takes, you have to be forceful. That parent, God bless her, that had a child on the spectrum and had, 2 other students trying to get all of them to school on time. And she was just asking for extra, can her students get bus tickets? She begging, pleading, and I hollered out, whether she heard me or not. Don't beg and plead these people. They work for us. And that's what I'm saying, Detroit. They are not doing us any favors by being on this board. And Dr. Vitti is definitely not doing us any favors by being the quote unquote leader for this district. If you're making $400,000+ a year, your ideals to me, your leadership, we're not going to see eye to eye on everything, but with their logic, sometimes they always, I'm not going to say always, I'm going to be fair, but the narrative is that it's us against them. If the community speaks at times, they take it so personal. When I say they, our weak president, Angelique Mayberry Peterson, and Dr. Vitti, they take it personal. But then when we reply to them, they reply to us, I'm sorry, we shouldn't take it personal. It goes both ways. But ultimately, you work for us. Like I've said before in the video, parents are not always right. This district is not always right. Parents are not always wrong. This district is not always wrong. I will give, like I said in other videos, I will give the kudos and that's a good idea. I appreciate that when it's needed. But it's not needed all the time when we're going up this slippery slope of unknown employment, and then we're going to slide down and be all surprised and messed up come August. We need transparency now. So that's why I'm going to send this email momentarily to Dr. Nikolai Vitti and ask him, what's the verdict, sir? Is it 300 schools, the population 300 or less to lose an assistant principal, or what? But what was disturbing to me about his conversation concerning, I'm sorry, y'all, concerning enrollment and getting the kids to school attendance. Basically moving forward, now he's tying in chronic absenteeism with behavior issues, but his rationale and his reason for what he's doing is tied into what I just said. Either repeat behavior issues, or chronic absentee. But ultimately, if it becomes repeat for either offense, they're going to make you go to your neighborhood high school or your neighborhood school. When they already know that 50% of our students, and this is a number that they gave us, the district gave us, 50% of our students don't go to their neighborhood schools. So the punishment, I guess, for either not getting to school or behaving, disruptive behavior, chronic, is to go to your neighborhood school if you're not there already. I asked him about attendance. If this district was really trying to curb chronic absenteeism, we already knew that it was a problem before the pandemic. Why not invest into more of your routes? Even though it's one-time COVID money. I didn't say buy extra buses, but just a trial period. Buy a couple. That would require you to hire more bus drivers. That would have a maintenance cost for those extra buses. But guess what? You'll be picking up more students, right? More students equal more money, right? Because our President Angelique Mayberry Peterson let us know today that because we are, give or take, 2,000 students short of our projected number of enrollment, which was roughly around 50,000, we are like at 48 or less thousand. So ultimately that I'll just say 2,000 students is a $20 million loss for our district, supposedly, because we are 2,000 students short. Our budget, our regular budget, not the COVID money, but our regular budget will be decreased and is decreased by $20 million. And what Vitti is saying that a lot of the COVID money, the ARPA money, was to fill gaps. That money wasn't put here to fill gaps. That money was here to provide resources for teachers to educate our students and services for our students. That was not to fill gaps. Okay, but they're bragging that they can keep staff and keep things rolling and add these new things. But then now look where we at. Instead of y'all focusing on enrollment, I said it again to them today. You got all kind of suburban areas willing to pick our kids up far from their schools because they got it. That's money. Ding. The more money we have, the more resources we can keep. But Dr. Vitti don't even want to give a bus ticket. Dr. Vitti and this board is not even advocating down at DDOT for more efficient bus timing to get these kids to school. There's an assumption that it's a Lyft and an Uber partnership to get some of our ESC students or high school students to their locations in their schools. And he didn't even know if we still had cabs because he said it. Oh, I don't know about the cabs, if they're still in existence. Come on, man. $400,000 plus a year with the perks, and you so out of touch in the community in which you service. But then we have 7 Black women. You know, I say it, and I'll say it, and I'll say it. I don't expect perfection, but I expect you to do your best. Detroit, and he said it tonight, you know, we're not in jeopardy. We are in trouble as a district. This man can downplay it. This board can downplay it because they know in this quote unquote high level, because he loves this word. Watch him. Dr. Vitti loves the words high level now. The board is starting to use it. But like I said in other videos, high level means none of y'all business. High level means I'm starting to see Detroit ain't dumb and y'all asking a lot of questions, so we just gonna high level it. We gonna have our private meetings. Even the committee meetings, conversations are high level, you know? That shouldn't be when these are our students, our children, our schools, and our money, you know? Teachers, I can't say it enough. Y'all don't know how much power y'all possess, you know? Period. Y'all got a union. Principals don't have unions. You know, I was told today lunch they have a union. Secretaries have unions. You know, it's a lot of unions. Whether it's weak or not, you know, I say it, I'm going to keep saying it. You go to school, you get your certification. It's a gift. Everybody can't teach. You know, teachers have been undervalued and underappreciated for so long. But it's like, it's just blatant now. And now it's trickling down to parents, you know? It's just blatant disrespect. Blatant. And it's like the illusions are constantly there. And it's not about a black and white, because a lot of the people in central office are Black. You know, like I said, 7 women on there. Black. You know, some proclaim to have been educators. Some proclaim that their own children went through the district. But it's like, your kids ain't there now. What you did in education was way back then. And the mindset and the respect and just the thinking through these things. The thought process of this board and Dr. Vitti has nothing to do with being proactive. It doesn't. I'm not saying everything that they have done is wrong, but I'm saying a lot of things need to be held accountable, especially this money. We got money that's still here. Thank God for the state of Michigan that said that $700 million cannot sit in one account. That $700 million has to be spent in the next 2 years, okay? Their plan was a 20-year plan, but that money at least has to be allocated in the next 2 years. You can't just sit on that and let it trickle down, especially when Mr. Nikolai Vitti is constantly talking about inflation. So if we're talking about inflation, that $700 million is not going to do half the things that they set it out to do for the next 20 years. Hell, AC in every school is going to take 5 years, but with inflation, it may take more. Detroit, I know y'all ain't sleep. Y'all gave me over 19,000 votes, Detroit. So I know y'all ain't sleep. But it's time to be a little bit more with it. Just a little bit more. Like I said, if speaking ain't for you, you ain't got to speak. Click on to that Zoom call. They see an extra person. They know it's 2 extra eyes and 2 extra ears on us. And that's all it's going to take. Ask them questions. And this board and Dr. Vitti know they have worked it well, and they're working it well daily. How to answer questions without answering them. Go all around the block, up the street, instead of just flat out answering the question. You're so busy caught up in intellect that the common sense answer is unheard of. It's unheard of. So, let me see what else I got for y'all. Like I said, the deans. Oh, after school programming. Pretty much what Dr. Vitti is saying, that is no extras. After school will strictly be like how it was before. Strictly academics. Unless a school, I guess, finds some creative funding, has producing some of the after school opportunities that they did with this extra ARPA money that was given per school. But it's a wrap. It's a wrap. I don't know the solid partnerships that this district made during the summer. They did have some good programs. I called some of the places in the summer, and they were legitly partners with them because this is a slick district. They could put it down on paper, but it might not be. I spoke with some of the vendors. They were overwhelmed and excited about the opportunities to work with the district. So, will these partnerships continue? Because if we can't do it big for the summer, we can't do it big for after school. We back to square one. But we're rising, though. Our graduation rates are rising, though. Going into August, we up the hill and we sliding down. We sliding down because we don't even know as of now who's going to be in the buildings. And he claims, not having a vice principal, assistant principal, like it's just nothing. Like, we have been we have been giving these schools, overly, it's too much. They don't need all of that leadership in one building. But you have messed with this code of conduct so much. Oh, let me tell y'all that too. I could talk for hours, Detroit, but I ain't. But yeah, let me finish the thought. I'll go back to it if I come back. But it's just so much the man talking about. Now, in May, people, him and the board is going to try to revisit the code of conduct to give the principals just a little bit more leeway to get children out of their schools. Dr. Vitti, you shouldn't have never messed with that leeway in the beginning. He is guilty. Him and his board is guilty for creating these stressful environments for you teachers. And you got to know that. Messing with that code of conduct and not giving this district restorative practices, which is a word that I gave him because he's using it so often, but not supplying it. Detroit. Now he wants to give them back their power, which he should have never taken. Like I told the teachers in the other video, if you're not documenting this stuff and putting it in Power School, of these assaults, these verbal attacks, these physical attempted attacks, these threats, the disrespect, if y'all not documenting none of those things, kids coming right back. Prime example, young lady I was talking about in a couple of videos ago, the one that called the teacher B, attempted to want to slap a teacher and call her B, she right back. And she's right back. Why? Because central office didn't have enough documentation of her chronic, quote unquote, bad behavior. So she's back. Okay? The kids see she back. So now we got to sit up here and worry and strategize and try to create an environment that's basically tiptoeing around this little girl. Unless we gonna start documenting, teachers. So we can revisit it and get her up out of here. Because like I said in the other video, and I'm about done for the night, y'all, because I could literally talk y'all to death. But you setting these schools up because you allowing these children with chronic behavior, bad behavior, quote unquote, with a slap on the wrist, 3 to 5 day suspension. And you're not giving these principals no leeway. But you're not providing the programs which would take that little girl You're not providing the staff that will pull her out of class and let her still be able to learn, but not disrupt that whole class and dim that teacher's spark of teaching, because it's mental abuse. Hell, in some of these schools, it might be physical abuse, but it's up to the teachers. The power that you possess, the power that parents, guardians, us people raising kids that ain't even theirs, older siblings, the power that you possess, just like these teachers. But if we don't know it, hey, Mama Watkins, if we don't know it and walk in it, it's only going to get worse, you all. And it's going to get worse with the confidence and the boldness of this board and Dr. Vitti increasing, because they really think they have this vision thing together. But all you got to do is look at our NAEP scores. We haven't seen current data yet because I guess they're still calculating and doing the math on certain, assessments our children have been taking. They have blamed COVID. It's true. I'll give them credit for that. But, the illusion is that we're going up. We're retaining teachers. We got seasoned teachers ready to put up the deuces. And they still got years in them, but it's a mental drain. I'd rather go to another district, make more money, and less headache. It ain't perfect, but it ain't this. It ain't the abuse or the non-appreciation or you not hearing us. And that's one thing, to ignore the staff's needs and the staff's concerns because they teaching the kids. But this district will ignore parents. So how you do that? You gonna ignore your boss. That's why we have a mouth, people. That's why we have a mouth. These are our schools, our children, and our money. It's real simple. They're not doing us a favor. Hell, if I was to have gotten on the board, I wouldn't have been doing you a favor, Detroit, because I signed up for it. $250 a meeting or not, I signed up for it. So we got to pay attention to this money. Once again, before I click the finish button, we got $20 million coming in a grant from Mackenzie Scott. With the literacy lawsuit from the state of Michigan, we got $94 million coming. With the Gretchen Whitmore increase, if I'm not mistaken, I did hear something about an 8% increase on funding. I don't know if that's separate, but we got money coming, Detroit, on top of the rest of the COVID money. Because supposedly, if we got 1.27 billion, 700 million is in facilities, which leaves us 500 million. And they say that's pretty much gone. That's what they say. But we got to stay on it, Detroit. I so appreciate everybody that looks at my videos, that shares my videos, whether you agree with any or everything that I say. I just appreciate you clicking on, taking the time to stay engaged. I may sound rough sometimes in what I say and how I say it, but I'm non-apologetic because I only come from the heart and I only mean well for our babies. I only mean well for the state of our district. Public education is not a promise that we'll have moving on in the future throughout the United States. But while we have it, while we have all this money, while we have all these people lining their pockets, I'm not throwing no names or throwing no shade. I'm just saying it because it's true. Whether it's city issues or the schools, it all ties in. And there's so much money here that we shouldn't be begging or pleading for nothing. All we got to do is follow that money and tell them where we want it to go, Detroit. So you have a blessed night. Please stay woke and stay engaged. Even if you don't do nothing but watch my videos. Even if you don't do nothing but get on a Zoom call and just listen. Even if you don't do nothing but send an email or call. You doing something. You doing something and just sitting there doing nothing, complaining, and you got family in the district. You got godkids in the district. You got grandkids in the district. You got your own kids in the district. You got church members in the district. It just goes. But as adults, We have the obligation because somebody did it for us. Whether you know them or not, those the real unsung heroes because they wore those capes that Sherlonda Buckman just bought for the POCs, but they wore those invisible capes, fighting for whatever quality education that you got. So let's do the same for these babies. Because like I say, everybody say they the future. So what we doing for the future? Are we talking about them or are we trying to get engaged? Are we even asking questions or are we just saying that, oh, DPSCD, a glorified babysitter? Well, if you ain't going to watch them, fight for the babysitters then. Have a blessed night, Detroit.